Jesus knew the Pharisees were becoming upset by his increasing popularity with the people. He felt it was time to leave Judah and make his way north to Galilee. Between he and Galilee lay Samaria, occupied by a people of mixed blood, resulting from intermarriage between Jews and Assyrians. Most Jews would have bypassed Samaria in order to travel to Galilee, for Samaritans were hated and viewed as worthless dogs, not fit for any part of God's plan. Jesus' compassion, however, was not for a particular race, but for every man. Thus it was that Jesus and his 12 disciples intentionally set out for Galilee by way of Samaria. Along the way, just outside a town called Sychar in Samaria, Jesus and the disciples came upon Jacob's well. Jesus, being exhausted from travel, asked his disciples to make the short trip into town to buy food, while he remained behind to rest a bit and have some time to himself. The disciples, nursing their own prejudices towards Samaritans, reluctantly continued on as requested. Jesus sat down near the well but did not sleep. Instead, he appeared to be waiting for something or someone. Soon a woman approached the well. On seeing Jesus there alone, she became quite nervous, and not without reason. She was traveling alone, and not too far back, she had walked past 12 Jewish men coming toward her. Fortunately, those 12 men left her alone. They did her no physical harm, yet their passing by her without so much as a glance in her direction served to remind her of her lowly position as a Samaritan and as a woman. Perhaps this Jewish man is harmless as well, she thought. But as she reached the well, and unlike the others on the road, this one was looking at her. She had no idea why he would do such a thing, but she decided to simply draw her water and be on her way. She filled the first of her jugs and was about to fill a second when the most unlikely thing occurred, and to be honest, she was somewhat startled, for the man at the well had spoken to her.
May I have a drink of your water, please?
Her initial shock turned to curiosity. She filled a cup from the fresh supply and offered it to him. As he took the cup, she felt she must ask the question that had formed in her heart.
Sir, how is it that you, being a Jewish man, would speak to a woman, and a Samaritan woman at that? For you hate us, and have no dealings with us whatsoever.
Woman, if you knew that which God desires to give you, and who it is that is here to offer it to you, then you would have approached me and spoken to me, and I would have offered you living water.
The answer was puzzling at best. It certainly didn't do anything to relieve her sense of curiosity. She really doesn't know how to proceed, yet she feels she must find out more. Once again, she asks him a question.
Sir, you obviously are not talking about the water from this well. It is extremely deep, and you have no rope or bucket. Where do you propose to get this water, and why should it be better than mine? Are you not aware that Jacob himself dug this well at God's command? Can there really be water better than this?
The woman is looking genuinely confused, yet at the same time is feeling an unexplainable excitement deep within her soul.
Sir, I would like to try some of your water. I'd never have to come here again, alone and in the hottest part of the day. I would never be frightened or thirsty again.
Jesus looks out towards the city and speaks to her.
Go then, and bring back your husband.
The woman lowers her head, reminded again of who and what she is.
Well, sir, I'm not married.
Jesus reaches out to her, puts his hand under her chin, and gently lifts her face until they see each other eye to eye.
I find your honesty commendable. I know you have had 5 husbands, and that the man you are living with now is not your husband. And yet, still, I offer you living water.
Jesus lowers his hand, but she continues to look into his compelling eyes.
I can see, sir, that you are some kind of man of God, and yet you are Jewish. How is it that you, being a Jew, believes Jerusalem is the holy place, while all the while telling me these things from this mountain which we believe to be holy?
My child, there's coming a day and time when worship won't take place on a mountain or any other place. Right now, you worship without knowing the source of salvation, and the Jews worship not knowing the source of life will come through them.
Jesus raises his arms and takes hold of the woman's shoulders. He then stares intently into her eyes as if to awaken an understanding beyond her human capacity to grasp.
Listen to me closely, daughter. There is a time, and for you, that time may be now, when those who worship God will not worship him on the outside, but on the inside with spirit and truth. Your heavenly Father is spirit, and he calls you to worship him there.
For reasons she doesn't understand, tears form in her eyes, blurring her vision. For the first time in her entire life, she knows what it feels like to be loved. A new thought forms in her mind. Yet it is a thought so wonderful it just cannot be. But she must know.
Sir, I know that one day the Messiah, the Christ, will come, and he will show me all these things you are speaking of today.
Jesus speaks to her, but he speaks with words that penetrate and reach the greatest needs of a wounded heart.
My daughter, that day has come for you, even now, for I am he for whom you have prayed and waited. I have known you before the beginning of time, and this very day, I have come for you. You are of more value to me than you can ever imagine. In this moment, as I hold you, you have more worth for me than anyone else in this world. Listen to me. You are not some worthless Samaritan dog. You are my child, and into you I will pour my life, my living water, and it will fill you. And from this day forward, I will forever love you.
In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, an understanding swept through this woman's soul. A light now burned brightly within her heart. Never again would she accept man's opinion of her stature or worth, for Christ, the Lord, the Son of God, had spoken to her and told her who she was. Leaving the water jugs behind, she turned and raced towards town. At some point in time, the disciples had made their way back and had witnessed the end of this little scene. They stood with their mouths wide open in amazement. Each was astonished that their leader would be talking to a Samaritan woman, yet no one dared to ask him why. At least, they thought, she is gone now. The disciples began to prepare a place for Jesus to sit and eat the meal with them that they had purchased in town. Jesus, however, stood, looking at the little town of Sychar again, as if he were waiting on something. Back in town, quite a commotion had begun.
It seems there is a woman running through town telling everyone she meets that there is a man at Jacob's well who may just be the Messiah.
The man to whom these words were addressed was about to inquire as to who this woman might be, when he himself sees a woman walking their way. His curiosity has been aroused, but when she gets close enough for him to recognize her, his curiosity turns to rage, and he calls her aside.
You! Come here!
She comes to him without hesitation. He speaks to her without reservation.
You shameless little whore! What are you doing running in the streets with decent people? What is the matter with you? Don't you know who you are?
Only hours ago, such a response would have left her feeling like crawling in a hole in shame and disgrace. But now, now, all things are new, and she boldly answers him.
Yes, sir, I do know who I am. I am a chosen vessel for the life of Christ, full to overflowing with his being. Sir, permit me to ask you the same question. Do you know who you are? If you don't know the answer, come with us to Jacob's well, and perhaps you will find out.
As quickly as she had appeared, she is gone on her way to tell another, and they are coming. She doesn't care if they are coming from curiosity, from anger, or from belief. All she knows is that the people are following her. While all this was happening, Jesus stood by the well, facing the city. He knows what is happening there. He knows his Father has just worked a miracle through him. He knows the Father has just uniquely changed a life. From this woman's witness, Jesus receives his glory, moving him emotionally and feeding his spirit. Suddenly warm tears form in Jesus' eyes and run down his face, for he sees coming hundreds of people. The disciples have not yet noticed this. Having arranged their dinner place, and with Jesus still standing by the well, they begin to eat. Finally, Peter speaks for the rest of them.
Lord, come, sit. This isn't bad food for Samaritan food.
Oh, Peter, I am being fed. Fed with food of which you know nothing about. Yet.
Jesus glances at his disciples and can tell by their expression they do not understand.
Come, get up. I want you to see this.
All 12 look to see what has claimed their leader's attention. What they see appears to be a white sea, as the light-colored clothing of the many blend into one image.
Men, some would tell you harvest time is still 4 months away. But look out there. I tell you, this field is right for harvest now. The woman has sown the seed. Shortly we shall reap that for which we did not sow.
And so it was that day that many lives were changed and many believed, not just because of the woman, but because of the Lord's own words. Jesus stayed on in Sychar for 2 days, teaching, preaching, healing, and touching the lives of men and women. When Jesus knew he must finally move on, he and his disciples set out on foot for Galilee. They had traveled perhaps less than half a mile when Jesus stopped and turned around to take one more look. And when he did, there, too far away to recognize with human eyes, stood one lone figure waving. Jesus lifted his arms in like response and waved, for he did not need human eyes to know. The woman at the well.